Hi, I just wanted to do a little video about sort of how to get back into fitness if you're struggling and have been maybe a bit sedentary for a while. I started off training when I was 18. I'd always been pretty active as a kid. Did a lot of tennis, rock climbing, sprinting, that type of stuff. And then when I was 17 or 18, got into resistance training, more muscle endurance sort of work throughout my 20s. And the reason that I started with the fitness journey, like the ongoing fitness journey, is because I had an accident when I was 16 and I had 3 compression fractures to my spine, and I compressed 2 of the discs in my spine. So I've got a severely compressed disc between L4 and L5, and also one between L5 and S1. And the doctors at the time told me that it's a chronic issue. It's never going to go away. It's only something that you can try and manage, but will get worse in time. So I endeavoured to stay pretty active throughout my life. Requalified as a personal trainer in my late 20s, and also qualified as a sports nutritionist as well. So all things that I did ultimately just to help me maintain my mobility through life, really. I always wanted to be an active person. I've always used it to help sort of balance me out a little bit mentally. I use it as it's a pretty good cathartic release when the pressures of life can often seem overwhelming, really. But when I hit 40, at 40 I was actually putting in the best performances of my life, certainly in terms of all the weights that I was lifting. I was getting PBs week in, week out from my mid-30s, where I sort of rejigged all my training routines, and everything was going well until it wasn't. So about 3 months after my 40th, the wheels fell off, really. I was doing a set of deadlifts, heavy deadlifts, got through the session, but in the aftermath, I once my body had cooled down, I tweaked something in my back, and it was something that I wasn't. It wasn't an unusual thing to happen. It usually happened a couple of times a year from the time I was, in my early 20s. But typically speaking, whether I was using the lacrosse ball to help, get rid of some of the knots around my lower back and other areas that connected, sort of upstream and downstream of the issue, whether I was using foam rollers, resistance bands, static stretching, any of these methods which had worked in the past, for some reason, on this occasion, it didn't really work. So I was stuck in this position where I felt I was never well enough to really do any full-on exercise routines. And I was attempting getting back into it sort of every month. And I would scale my routines back, and I would drop certain exercises out of there. And it got to the point that about a year after I did this, so I was probably 41 at this time, just turned 41, I got to the point where I was just like, it seems pointless. It seems like there's no way back for me, pardon the pun, because my back was just in such a state that even doing a set of bodyweight squats was leaving me in a position where I basically couldn't straighten up. I couldn't stand up tall and extend through my hip flexors into an upright position for weeks after that. So I'd be sort of waking up in the morning, getting out of bed, which is typically, the stiffest time of the day for anyone. But it would take me hours and hours to get to a point where I could even stand up straight. And so feeling like that doing any form of exercise was just exacerbating the problem. It was, and I didn't really see a way around it, and I got quite despondent. And it went. I suppose I almost gave up really, and went several years doing pretty much no exercise at all. And it wasn't until very recently, about 3 months ago, that I decided enough is enough. I've had enough of this. I can't live a life where there is no exercise, where I don't have that ability to sort of release some of the frustrations. I've always been so active, and I'd worked so hard throughout my life to maintain my mobility, that it just got to that point where I thought, look, do you know what? Regardless of whether I'm in pain, I'm going to have to start doing something. And I'd never really sort of scaled it all the way back just to walking. For some reason, I guess I had a bit of a mental block in my head, feeling like walking, well, what's walking going to do? It's nothing. I was always a bit, I've got to train relentlessly with a relentless amount of intensity, and I need to be seriously fatigued at the end of my routines, and I would do resistance training because I wanted to look a certain way. I wanted to be happy looking in the mirror, and it got to that point for the last few years. I basically just didn't look at myself in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw, and I was in this mindset that my exercise days are done. My ability to maintain good movement, good posture is behind me, and I'm just going to have to suffer on through. And then 3 months ago, I went for a walk with one of my son's friends' fathers. Just came into Wintergate Park and just went for a nice long walk. And he just off the cuff said, "Oh, I've been sort of one of his little routine. He doesn't do any sort of formal exercise, as it were, as I would consider it. But he said he'd been walking for like the last, 4 or 5 years, and he'd make sure that he averaged out 10,000 steps a day across the whole month. So obviously he's saying he didn't have to get 10,000 steps each day, but if he was under 10,000 on one day, he would make sure he did more on another. And at the end of the month, if it's a 30-day month, let's say, he's done 300,000 steps. And I thought, do you know what? I've got to do something, so I'm going to give that a go. Now I've had knee issues since I was 15, both of my knees actually. I've always had a bit of an issue, whether it was because I grew too fast, too quickly. I was 6'2" when I was 15, or 14 actually, before the accident. I'm no longer 6'2", I'm about 6'1.5" now. I've definitely lost half an inch from the compression that happened with the accident. I had a jet ski accident when I was on holiday in Tunisia when I was 16, and I've been sort of suffering ever since. But anyway, we went on this walk, ended up doing about 15,000 steps, and I felt pretty good because we kept up a pretty good pace on the walk. I got a bit of a sweat on. It was a hot day, and I took it to heart what he said about averaging this amount of steps, because I'd never been consciously aware of the steps I was taking, and I'd been pretty I'd led a pretty sedentary life over the last few years, as I was saying. So anyway, I decided, right, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to get my 10,000 steps averaged across the month, and I did it for 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, when I was waking up in the morning and going to stand up, I was able to stand up fully upright with no restriction. And I thought, my gosh, I haven't felt like this in 4 years. I haven't been able to do that in 4 years. And so it just reinforced to me that walking for me is something that I really need to be doing. So I'm actually, after those 3 weeks, I decided that I would try and and get back into some form of resistance exercise. And I would start off with like maybe what I did do was a 6-week muscle endurance program where I kept it very simple. I would just pick one exercise per body part, let's say, so one exercise each day. If I was going to do my legs, I might choose body weight squats, and I would choose a certain amount of squats that I would do each minute, on the minute, and I would do it for 30 minutes. It could be lunges, it could be squats, but body weight, no weights at all. If it was chest, right, I'm going to do press-ups. If it's abs, although abs was never something I really focused on because I found that doing deadlifts was a brilliant way to work your abs. It's like a reverse crunch. But now I was approaching this routine where I said, look, I'm not going to do any heavy squats, no heavy back squats at all, and no deadlifts. I've got to just get rid of those movements because they're too compressing on my back, and because the issue that I have is essentially in the load bearing part of my body, any weight that compresses me is a nightmare because both of the discs that are severely compressed, they're also bulging, and I was starting to get nerve pain going down into my left glute, which is something I hadn't had before, and it was constant. It didn't matter whether I was lying down, standing up, sitting down, anything like that. So but after those 3 weeks of walking, the nerve pain reduced massively to the point where it pretty much had disappeared. And it had been a relatively new development anyway. It was only really since I turned 44 that the nerve pain had started. So I'd really been suffering with it for almost a year. And then 3 weeks of walking, and suddenly I didn't have any nerve pain going down into my left glute, and I was able to stand up tall. So yeah, after the 3 weeks of walking, I still carried on doing the walking every day, but I also started doing body weight routines. I was doing basically 5 routines a week, picking a different exercise each day for a different body part. So I would work my legs, I would work my back, I'd work my chest, I'd work my shoulders, I'd work my abs, and I didn't really focus too much on biceps and triceps, figuring that, well, by working my chest at this stage, my triceps are working, by working my back, my biceps are working, and let's just see how we go. And week on week, I managed to keep progressing, keep increasing the number of reps that I was doing, keep feeling like I'm getting stronger and fitter, at which point after 6 weeks I decided to go into a a hypertrophy routine, or hypertrophy, depending on which way you want to say it. And I'm now in the 4th week of that routine. Everything's been going pretty well. As I said, no weighted back squats, no deadlifts. But I've gone back to some of the old routines I did, and I'm breaking down the body parts each day. So yesterday I did shoulders, today I'm probably going to do legs, tomorrow, who knows, maybe I'll do back, maybe I'll do chest, I'll probably do back, and then I'll probably do chest, and so on and so forth, and work through the body parts that way. But the key thing I've been doing is getting my 10,000 steps every day, if not more. Actually, on my 45th birthday, which was only a couple of weeks ago, I did 34,000 steps, which I think for me is a bit of a personal record. Maybe I've done more than that when I was travelling around the world in my early 20s on a day, who knows. I certainly didn't have a Fitbit at that time, and I wasn't bothered about my step count, but I think certainly for modern day, in the last 20 years, let's say, I think 34,000 that's my PB. But I've been feeling great, and with that said, for anyone who is struggling to find motivation or a way to get back into their fitness journey, walking is a great first step. It's an amazing first step, and I would say, everyone says 10,000 steps a day. Okay, yeah, you can do 10,000 steps a day, but if you're just sort of ambling through the 10,000 steps. I'm not sure it will be beneficial, because obviously you're moving your body, you're getting all the joints lubricated, blood flow through the body, all of that sort of stuff. But I would try and add maybe like 20% intensity onto your walking from what you would normally do if you were just walking around the shops, let's say. Try and get that heart rate up. Try and treat it as a form of exercise, where you do want to get the heart rate up, where you do want to try and get a little bit of a sweat on if you can. And start doing that. Start doing that daily. Don't put any pressure on yourself to do any other types of exercise at this stage. Just start with the walking. If you've got injuries, stick with the walking until you feel that your body is getting a little bit stronger. Because I've also, as I mentioned, I've also suffered with knee problems my whole life. Well, my whole life, since I was 14 or 15. And the knee issues seem to be so much better now. I can only put it down to the walking. As I say, it's not something I've focused on in the past. It is something I'm focusing on now. But those everyday sort of movements where sometimes you crouch down, you're not doing like perfect technique like you would if you were just doing a body weight squat, where it's it's a static movement as such. Your feet are fixed in the same position and you can get some really good technique to make sure that your knees aren't vulnerable. But when you're just doing everyday movements like crouching down on a floor, picking something up, you're on your toes a little bit, and then you sort of stand back up. I was always getting it where either my left knee or my right knee would buckle. And that has been going on, as I say, since I was about 14 or 15. So 30 years. For the last 3 months since I started all this walking, I haven't had that issue once. So to me, it says that walking is a must, and definitely as you get older, it is very, very important to factor in some regular walking. Once you get to the point where you feel you're a bit more capable, then you can start to look at maybe introducing some other forms of activity, which can increase your heart rate, can tax the muscles a bit more, can add to toning of your body, and so on and so forth. Obviously, diet is going to be a key point in anyone's goals. If they've got certain aesthetic goals that they're looking to achieve, your diet needs to be looked at, because that's going to be a huge factor in anything you do, not merely just from energy levels but from fat burning as well. That is the most efficient way to burn fat, is through your nutrition, not through exercise. Exercise is great at shaping the body. Nutrition is or exercise, certainly resistance exercise, is great at toning the body, but you can tone all the muscle you want. If you've got layers of fat on top of it, you're never really going to see the change. You need your diet to be on point to be able to burn the fat on your body 24/7. And there's only so much exercise you can do each day. You certainly can't be training 24/7. So if you want results, you've got to dial that in as well. Look, I'll leave it there for today, but it's food for thought. I found walking has been amazing for my mental health, amazing for loosening my body up at a point when I felt like I was at that point of no return. And if it had not been for that walk, that random walk that I organised with my son's friend's father, who knows where I'd be right now, probably still suffering. But as it stands, I'm out in the park, 5,000 steps into my walk on a beautiful day. It's not summer yet, but we've got 25 degrees today, and I'm going to go and get a load of steps in, hence the summer hat and the glasses. Anyway, take care, hope this helps someone, and I will endeavour to post more videos, and I will get way more specific with different routines that you can do to stay fit, healthy, get that beach body, and everything else. So take care, stay healthy, speak soon.